Okay, so check-in time for me. I have Nosy, sweet puppy, here with me. I've had puppy for most of my life. Um, and there's also Phoenix right here. There she is. She wants to come up, but puppy is here right now. Um, Geez, why am I making this video? I just don't feel very good today. Um, I feel really insecure. I feel frustrated. I feel like a lot of fear. Um, Fix your ears, buddy. Um, I just feel so small and so isolated right now. Um, Today I went out to buy cigarettes, which I normally look a little, even when I'm just going to the gas station. Like, if I look like this, I usually wear a mask, which is one of the things that I'm happy that COVID gave me, was the ability to like wear a mask. And yes, people do look at me funny, but ever since COVID, in the United States anyway, it's become a little bit more socially acceptable to just wear a mask, and people don't really ask questions or look at you super strange. They're just kind of whatever. It just doesn't faze them as much. And usually when I'm wearing a mask, even if my hair isn't done or my makeup isn't on, it's easier for people to read me as a woman because they don't see half of my face. But today I went out to buy cigarettes, and like, I have short hair now. It used to be down to my hips, but it's short now, and I was wearing it kind of like up in a little claw clip like that, and no makeup on, nothing like that. And I have started wearing a lot less makeup in general. I used to be kind of adamant about not being seen if I wasn't in basically full glam. I also had a job that like pressured me to look as feminine and glammed up as possible. There's just a lot of emphasis put on everyone's physical appearance at that job. But since I kind of left that job, I've just started wearing less makeup in general, and sometimes I feel really confident that way, and other times I feel the same exact way I did when I wanted to be seen in full glam all the time. And it is a confidence thing, it's a safety thing. And I don't have an accurate read on how people perceive me. Ever since I transitioned, I've never known how people perceive me. I'm never sure if people are just being polite, if they actually read me as a woman, or if they're clocking me or fetishizing me in their mind. And I don't know if this is something that every trans woman experiences, but I would imagine that the vast majority of us do. Is you are hyper aware of how people interact with you, and beyond that, I am hyper aware of how people even look at me, like the little glances. I can just never tell if they're like what the intention behind that is. I also, this is information that I read several years ago, but I am diagnosed with BPD, borderline personality disorder, and I read something about it where like they showed people on like a 10% scale from 0 to 100, someone that was like smiling at 0 and someone that was enraged at 100, and each stage was like the next 10%, right? So there's slowly went from smiling to being irate. And most people perceived their face as negative around like 70%. People that were diagnosed with BPD interpreted the face as negative around 30%. And so that's something I've noticed in myself is I spend so much time analyzing how people even look at me, and it plays into like gender dysphoria and what it means to be perceived by people. And not only do I not have an accurate read on how people perceive me, I still, after 4 years, and I'm coming up on closer to 5 years of transition, I still don't know how I want people to perceive me, which is a very odd place to be. And just as a moment of vulnerability, some days like today, it just hits me that this is so much harder than I thought it would be. There are so many things in my life that I want that there's this obstacle in the way of now. Something I used to say a lot in the early stages of my transition was, I'm not sure what's worse, to be so unremarkable and so plain and average that no one really looks at you, or to be so exceptional. And I don't mean exceptional in a positive way. I mean like irregular, unusual, to be so exceptional that it seems like everybody looks at you. And it's like two sides of the same coin. It's like you go from getting no attention to getting a lot of attention that you can't control. And when I can't control things, it causes distress for me. Even if that distress is like, I've done work to like lessen my need to control things, but still, that distress does come up when I feel like I can't control other people's reactions to me, and that intersects with being trans and this pressure to be hyper feminine. I often see like a lot of like trans content on the internet that says, you know, like reasons to be with a trans girl, like, oh, we can't get pregnant, or you know, like you can fuck us in the ass. And it's like taboo, especially to a lot of men, because like cis women may not always be willing to let them have anal sex. But having anal sex as a trans woman can be, not always, but can be really validating. It can help. It can help you feel like a woman. Yes, I know lots of people have anal sex. Lots of people receive anal sex who are not women, who are cis men, who are non-binary, and all sorts of different gender expressions, sexualities, and yeah, I know that's not exclusive to any one particular type of person. Even straight men can enjoy anal sex. But and I mean that like as receiving anal sex. Of course, a lot of them enjoy giving anal sex to other people, but I got on a little tangent there. One of the things I see online in some trans content is this idea that trans women are hyper feminine all the time, and for a certain type of trans woman, they are more feminine than a lot of cis women are, which in my experience is true. And when you come into the community and you realize that there are so many trans women who are hyper feminine, who are beautiful, who pass perfectly, that not only can be really intimidating, like it's hard to even make friends with them because it almost feels like they've reached this unattainable level of being trans, of transness, right? And especially if you know that they've had facial feminization surgery, or they have breast implants, or they have BBL, or some of them even have ribs removed to like mimic a cis woman's waist, and so they have this like hourglass kind of figure. And of course the big one, bottom surgery. I know not every trans woman wants bottom surgery. I do. And when you see or meet trans women who have had those procedures, for me, a lot comes up. Like, yes, I think they're absolutely beautiful, and I'm happy for them. My internal experience can be one of envy, one of jealousy, and inadequacy. And starting my transition, I thought things would be a little bit easier, and that those things might be a little bit easier for me to obtain, but almost 5 years in, I've had none of them. And it's starting to feel like I might not ever be able to get those procedures. I'm a server, bartend. I'm not like rolling in money over here. I don't have people who are willing to help me with that financial burden. And that's the thing, is getting those procedures is not a matter of desire for me. I do desire them. It's a matter of finance. I looked into my face alone, and we're looking at anywhere between $30,000 and $80,000 $10,000. Breast implants between $8,000 and $15,000. Bottom surgery, $80,000 to $120,000. I make $30,000 a year. My insurance will not provide any assistance for those procedures because they are deemed as purely cosmetic procedures. Which is disheartening because I am able to fully admit that, you know, like my face, that's cosmetic. And I pass okay without having facial feminization surgery. That's a privilege that I have. But are there things I would change? Absolutely, there are. And sometimes I start obsessing over the changes that I desire. And that's, you know, I'm exploring that idea myself of, is that purely cosmetic, or is that something I can make an adequate case for being medical? And like breast implants, that's another one. Is that cosmetic? Yeah, in a lot of ways it is. And you know, when you start hormones, everyone says your mileage may vary, and my mileage didn't go very far. I have a very small chest, and I think it's cute, but I do have desires for a larger chest. And the big one, bottom surgery. I of course don't talk about this with other people, and I rarely allow myself to even have the internal conversation or write about it or make a video, just kind of letting my internal monologue flow out. But the fact is, I really do desire bottom surgery, and having a penis is not something that I desire. It takes away so much of how I see myself. I am not one of those trans women who you're going to find like putting content out there with, you know, like leggings or workout pants or hot pants where, like, you know, I have a bulge and I'm out there confidently saying like, would you date a trans girl with something a little extra? Like, that's not me. And all power to the trans girls that can do that have so much confidence in their self-image to be able to do that. And of course, I don't know their internal experience at all, so I can't speak for them, and I won't speak for them. But for me, I feel so much shame about having a penis. And it's so invalidating for me. And I was listening to Kat Black. She's a trans woman that makes a lot of content on the internet. And she made the point that I found myself really agreeing with, that trans women kind of fall into 3 categories as to the pressures of being perceived by other people. The first category would be trans women who essentially want to go stealth, right? Is to get to a level in their transition where they pass absolutely flawlessly and nobody ever even questions the fact that they may be trans. It doesn't enter into their stream of consciousness whatsoever. And they can essentially start their lives over as a different person. All of their legal documents reflect their new name and gender. There's nothing about their physical presentation, even their voice, that may tip other people off to the fact that they are trans. They are just completely stealth, and that is me. That's what I desire. But I have not achieved that, and the process of achieving it has been, and like, I'm frankly not very far into that process at all, but the work I have done so far has been so stressful and so exhausting. That, you know, that ultimate goal of going stealth is, it's just something that it feels like this insurmountable task, like some goal that I would just never be able to reach. And I don't know if that's true or not. Sometimes it feels true. When I just look at the reality of my circumstance, sometimes it does feel true. And it can be very discouraging. And the focus on trying to pass so well sometimes plays like I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid, and it's like, oh, you like activated my trap card, you know? You were working so hard towards your goal that you accidentally got yourself into a little bit of a pickle here. And that's what's been happening for me is, oh, I just wanted to pass so well, but when I focus on passing completely, then I start hyper fixating on the things that I feel like are clockable about me, and that makes my gender dysphoria even worse because I'm not perfect. And if I'm not perfect, then what's the point of even trying? I think that has less to do with being trans than it does my own personality quirks, for sure, and insecurities, just in general, that are not always related to being trans. The second group she talked about was trans women who lean into objectification. And I have definitely done that in the past. And I still engage in some of that now. And in a way that's really validating. I think people don't understand that. You know, you oftentimes get questions from people like, oh, well, like, you know, cis women don't act that way. Cis women don't post that kind of content, which is a fabrication because a lot of them do. The fact is there are just so many different types of women in the world with so many different moral codes and expectations that come from their society, their family, and expectations of themselves that, like, it can kind of seem, if you're only consuming trans content, that, like, well, trans women are the only people in the world posting content related to sex work or engaging in sex work, and that's not true. There are people from every gender and sexuality that engage in sex work. But when trans women do it, I've noticed when I've engaged in that, it can feel super validating. And then, you know, kind of regardless of what people are saying about you, because you get attention that can be, it's like something you know but not everyone else knows. But when you start doing sex work in a more public manner, then it's like, for me anyway, it's this like switch in my head where it's like I can show the world this side of humanity that y'all either deny exists in the first place or are uncomfortable with, or when I try to express it to people, they seem to not believe me. And a lot of that is this idea that straight men are attracted to trans women. Um, which most people seem to just reject that idea entirely. But the fact is, if you are a trans woman, in the process of your transition, you also discover a part of the world that most people don't know exists. And the simple fact is, yes, there are lots and lots of straight men who are attracted to trans women and they want to have sex with us. And all of that is fine and dandy. There's absolutely nothing inherently wrong with that. What can be frustrating as a trans woman is to know and have the experience that men are attracted to you. And granted, this is if you are a trans woman who's attracted to men, which that's a whole other thing for me. But if you have that experience and that knowledge that yes, there are straight men out there who are attracted to you, want to have sex with you, want to spend time with you, if you find yourself in a situation with one of those men that's not just, oh, I just want to have sex with you and never see you again, which is usually the case. If you find yourself in an ongoing situation with a man like that, it can be difficult to, frankly, nearly impossible to transition that attractiveness between people, that like attraction between people, into any kind of a real relationship. Because all of a sudden, you as a trans woman, you might have been okay with just hooking up sometimes or meeting them at, a bar where none of their friends hang out, right? And they don't know any of the staff, or it's on the other side of town. And it's like, okay, whatever, like, you want to fuck me, I want to get fucked, whatever. It's just something we deal with. But if you like actually make a connection with someone and you say like, well, what do you like maybe think about dating? Is there any possibility that we could like have a relationship with each other? That's when things start to crumble, right? And of course, you should never expect a relationship from someone that you're just hooking up with, but if feelings do emerge and you're still in contact with that person, like, you have every right to express your feelings and your desire. And if you could potentially see yourself being with that person, you have every right to inquire about being with that person. Rarely, in fact, never, has that worked out for me. And I'm in a situation now where I'm sleeping with someone and I could potentially see myself being with him, like being in a relationship with him. And just the pressure of all that brings me to the point where I start to wonder, like, is it even worth asking? Is it even worth bringing up? Or should I allow this situation to go on where we're just getting sex from each other and that's it? Um, it's like, if we're just getting sex with each other, why do you kiss me when you see me? Why do you kiss me when I leave? Why do we talk about our lives together? Why do we talk about work and family? Why are we starting to share the experiences that like made us who we are as people? Why are we discussing our anxieties about the future? You know, that those are things that if you just took all of that information and said these two people are having sex and they're sharing all of this information about each other with each other, if you just looked at all of that, I think most people would say, you know, they are in a relationship, they have a relationship, right? But if you ask for it, all of a sudden it's, well, I just want sex. Which I guess is fine. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with just having sex with people if that's what both of you want. But why let it get to a point where you have a relationship in every way except the title of dating, the title of boyfriend and girlfriend or partners? It's frustrating, and I think it's easier for the trans woman in the situation to be able to envision that, because our friends, our family, if that's your biological family or your chosen family, you know, like, unless you are completely self, like we were talking about earlier, it's hard to keep your transness as a secret from everyone in your life. So if people are in your life and they love you and they care about you and they make time for you and you have real friendships and relationships with those people and you put in the work to maintain them, those people, they love and accept you for who you are. They know you're trans, they love and accept you for who you are. And so it's easier for a trans woman to see a future with someone because we've already gotten past that part. We already did that work. We already curated relationships in our lives that are loving and supportive, right? But for a cisgender man who identifies as straight or is perceived by people in their life as a straight man, for them to say, this is my girlfriend, I am dating a trans woman, all of a sudden they are inviting queerness into their life in a way that maybe they've never had to do before. Like this particular guy, you know, he's an army guy, and I don't think it's any secret that the culture of masculinity in the army is not a super queer friendly space. And my mother, my sister, those are things he worries about. Like, how does a mother react when she finds out her son is dating a trans woman? Is that her issue to like resolve? Yeah, absolutely it is. But does it affect me? Yes, it does. How does his sister react when she finds out he's dating a trans woman? Again, is that her issue? Yeah. Does it affect me? Also, yes. His friends, his army friends, his coworkers, his everything. All of a sudden, queerness is a part of his public life. And I do say public intentionally, you know, I do think people who constantly flaunt their relationship and it's the only thing they can talk about are rather annoying, but the simple fact is if you are in a relationship, you should be able to talk about it with the people that you love. And if you can't, then that's really not much of a relationship, is it? Um, no, that's a secret. That's a secret fuck buddy. And it's way too easy for trans women to fall into the role of secret fuck buddy. Not necessarily because the man doesn't have a desire to date her, but because his desire to date you pales in comparison to his fear about dating you. And to be totally honest with you, it's just kind of a shitty place to be. And all of that is disregarding ideas about chasers and that whole issue. Trans women, take a drink if 90% of the chasers who contact you are from the army. Cheers. The third category that Kat was talking about are trans women who lean into the idea of repulsion, like being repulsive to people. And frankly, I've had my desires to lean into that as well, especially towards like the middle months of this year, 2024. And I actually started taking steps like in that direction. A big thing for me is over the past 2 years, I gained a noticeable amount of weight. I gained about 30 pounds. And I've never had to really think about my weight before. For most of my life, I was chronically underweight. I was just way, way skinny. And that became like part of my identity, was the fact that I was just a skinny person, regardless of, you know, before or after transition, I was just skinny. But over the past 2 years, I like had to confront the fact. I was like, no, I'm gaining weight. I'm having to size up my clothes. You know, my old favorite outfits don't really fit the same way anymore, or frankly fit at all. And I had put so much of unconscious energy into this idea that being skinny made me beautiful. Healthy, no. I've had problems with alcohol, other drug issues. I've been a smoker for most of my life. And even though I was skinny, I was surviving off of fast food. I was not a healthy person by any means. I just happened to be skinny. And over the past 2 years, it was like, okay, well now I'm an unhealthy person who's like gaining weight. And although I am now taking my health more seriously, it's a journey, and I'm having to like focus on a lot of things that I've never had to focus on before. So that's taking like a lot of mental energy to start changing my lifestyle into something healthier and more sustainable, which is not easy for anyone, regardless of why you're doing it. Freeing yourself from addiction, trying to lose weight, trying to get stronger. And frankly, all three of those are a part of this new journey for me. but I was starting to feel so insecure and ugly and so frustrated with my inability to acquire those procedures that we talked about earlier, um, that I kind of just started saying, like, you know what, fuck it. If I'm never going to be one of those trans women who passes like perfectly, then I might as well be a trans woman who plays into your stereotypes about what we are and what we look like. I might as well be, you know, for lack of a better words, quote unquote, that freak. And so I cut all my hair off. I dyed it bright red. Um, I started wearing less makeup, but more extreme makeup. I intentionally smudge eyeliner so it exaggerates the dark circles under my eyes, right? Um, and there's also just a lot of like self-care that I let go of. My treatments for electrolysis that I had been consistently going to for about a year, I just stopped them and I haven't restarted them, which is a whole thing. It's not a money issue. I just have this internal resistance to it. But yeah, I just like skincare, just all of that. I just kind of stopped caring about it, and I just started growing into the idea of like, if society perceives me as a freak, then I will give you a freak. And I had like real plans to fully embrace that. Everything from extreme facial piercings to blackout tattoos, and I'm still going to get black tattoos. That's just something I want for myself, and you can't see my leg right now, but I have started already. But the idea became more and more extreme that if I were able to push myself to the limit of physical appearance, it's like a layer of protection for me. And I still struggle with that. I still think that might be easier to completely lean into that more extreme side of my presentation, and have like just further increase that immediate perception of like, oh, that person, that's not something I understand. That's something I'm going to stay away from. I don't get it. It's weird. It's scary. I just don't like it. Just kind of like embracing that. And there's a part of me that still really wants to do that. I'm honestly just really, really struggling with my transition recently. And I don't know what that means for me. You know, I can't imagine myself going back. I worked so hard to even get here. But these ideas that I need to go farther, and that I should be a certain way, I should be a certain kind of feminine, they're putting so much pressure on me that I'm just having a really hard time dealing with it. And I have serious work to do in regards of how I'm able to embrace femininity and what it actually means to me. Like, why did I do this? There's this thing in me that's undefined. and I still don't have words for it. The motivating factor behind this entire transition, but behind coming out, doing the work to be who I am now, there's a force behind it that I just don't have words for. And when I find myself in situations and times of insecurity like this, it starts like knocking at my door and saying like, well, you went this far, but what did you really even achieve? If you're not this hyper feminine woman, what are you doing? And I guess my answer is I'm trying my best, but it feels like my best isn't enough.